Chapter 24:13 Light Falls into Darkness 1. Fatty Sue burst out laughing. If you really starve to death, the history books of the Radiant Moon Empire will have to say, the great Earth dog Brian proved with his life that dogs are gluttons. Professor Leonardo da Vinci took a swig of koji and slowly added, keep an eye on it for me. It can gnaw on bones, but just don't let it eat poop. Woof. Woof 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 woof. Laughter erupted once again in the cabin. However, behind that laughter, everyone knew that parting was imminent. The spaceship's trajectory pierced the night sky, leaving a long trail of light as it sped towards the Radiant Moon Empire. That light was like a flame in the long river of fate, bright yet lonely. Zhang Yi and his crew's spaceship landed on the landing platform of the Radiant Moon Empire. The 7th Silver Moon Guard, led by CL Union, was waiting for their arrival here. The hatch opened, and Zhang Yi and the others disembarked one after another, while Shen Liuxing and Fenggu were in the middle of the group. Shen Liuxing looked up and saw CL Union, a gentle smile appearing on her face. Sister Liunian. Shiyu Lunyan looked at Shen Luxing, her eyes showing no anger at Shen Luxing's running around, but rather a loving smile on her usually icy face. Welcome back. Had enough fun outside? Yes, I had a lot of fun. The two men's conversation was as if the trouble that had previously plagued the Lunarians of the two great empires had never happened. However, in reality, her escape resulted in the loss of more than 10,000 Lunarian warriors in both nations. Zhang Yi was too lazy to judge anything. If Shen Liuxing really wanted to live, there was nothing wrong with that. Anyway, it's the Moon people's own business. They don't care, so why should Zhang Yi care? This world has no place for NPCs. The sacrifice of the meteor has a great tragic quality, while the deaths of ordinary Lunarian warriors will not attract much attention. CL Union turned her gaze to Fenggu, a sharp, cold light flashing in her eyes. Shadow Warrior, it was you who took away Meteor. Burning Bones snorted coldly, his eyes filled with hostility. Zhang Yi explained their situation, but Shiyu Lunyan was unimpressed, saying that this was the Radiant Moon Empire. Even if the Black Moon Priest came here, he wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. A mere Shadow Warrior with an ability index of 42,000 is utterly incapable of turning the tide. CL Union pulled Shen Liuxing to her side and sighed softly. There was no need to be in such a hurry, but recently, the unusual activity at the abyss of eternal darkness has become exceptionally intense. This is very unnatural, so the ceremony of lighting the fire must begin as soon as possible. Shen Liuxing nodded. I understand. I've always understood. It's all right, Sister Liunian. Shiyu Lunyan glanced at Zhang Yi and the others and nodded sincerely. Thank you, guests from Earth. Our Radiant Moon Empire will not forget your contributions, and we will reward you handsomely in the future. However, we need to hold the ceremony as soon as possible. You are welcome to come and observe. A strange light flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. He smiled faintly and said, all right. I'm also very curious about what the so-called ceremony of lighting the fire is like. Led by CL Union, they ventured deeper into the Huiyue Empire, the abyss of eternal darkness. On the moon, the source of darkness and silence. There was no wind, no sound. It was as if the entire world's breath had been cut off. The earth beneath their feet was cracked, and a dark light shone through the cracks. The light did not illuminate, but rather devoured, as if pairs of eyes were gazing at the world from the bottom of an abyss. In this chaotic and desolate land, everything seems small and powerless. The rock face was twisted, as if it had been crushed by some enormous force millions of years ago. Broken stone pillars and fragments floated in midair, as if suspended by some indescribable gravitational force. This is the birthplace of the Dark Moon Empire. Legend has it that the power of the Druk giant, Samel, was first revealed from this place, thus giving birth to a dark empire and a blood-related race. At this moment, 3 figures appeared in this desolate, dark abyss. Standing at the very front was a figure draped in a long, black robe, the hem of which swayed in the void like flames. A dark abyss, a face so dark it's nothingness. Xian Yu Fei Ming, the sixth Black Moon Priest. She stood before the abyss of eternal darkness, her dark aura seemingly blending into the darkness of the place. She herself came from this abyss. The Druk gods created her race. However, their ancestors later chose to betray their faith, no longer taking the release of Samel as their mission, but selfishly choosing the survival of their own people. However, deep within the souls of the Dark Moon clan, the desire to save their creator always remained. Therefore, such a belief has never been severed within their clan. In this generation, led by Xian Yu Fei Ming, there is a group of fanatical believers called the Broken Sealers. That's right, everything was planned by this group of seal breakers. The fact that Fengu took Shen Liuxing away and the subsequent death of Shi Yuyan were all arrangements made by Xian Yu Fei Ming. If not the Black Moon Priestess, who else could possess such powerful energy? Xian Yu Fei Ming slowly raised her hand, her fingertips caressing the void. In that instant, a faint roar came from the bottom of the abyss, as if some slumbering behemoth was turning over. Xian Yu Fei Ming's voice was deep and hoarse, filled with an undisguised fervor. Your Majesty Samel, our creator, are you still slumbering? Billions of years have passed, yet your whispers still resound in my blood. Today, I will open a new rift for you, and let your will descend once more. Xian Yu Fei Ming murmured to herself, and not far behind her stood two figures. They wore the silver-white holy robes of the Holy See of the monarchy, their eyes fixed intently on the enormous abyss and the crimson moon before them. Disciplined Father Orion and the mourning Sister Leibniz. These two, who came from the righteous Church of Light, now stood in the darkness of the abyss of eternal darkness, alongside the Black Moon Priest. Xian Yu Fei Ming slowly turned around, his gaze sweeping over the two of them, a subtle questioning glint in his eyes. Orion Leibniz, you have passed my test. But what is the purpose of the Holy See, the embodiment of light, that it chooses to step into darkness? Didn't you keep saying you would judge heretics and burn blasphemers? Now, you're joining me in tearing that seal apart. Her voice was deep, alluring yet mocking. Orion's eyes were cold, and his voice was like iron. The will of God is unfathomable. Light and darkness are merely narrow distinctions made by human eyes. The Holy See follows the one God, and if we are to fight against the ultimate fall, we must release Samel and reforge the power of judgment. Chapter 24:14 Light Falls into Darkness. 2. Leibniz spoke softly, her voice sounding like a sob, yet utterly calm. All races will face destruction. If fate is inescapable, then let us push open the door of destiny with our own hands. At least, we can choose the way we are destroyed. Upon hearing this, Xian Yu Fei Ming threw his head back and laughed loudly. Laughter echoed in the abyss of eternal darkness, lingering for a long time. Haha, what a fine way to choose destruction. Orion, your church prides itself on being the light, yet you and us fanatics are on the same path. In that case, you are kindred spirits. Orion said coldly, don't misunderstand. We are not on your side. We are just using each other. Leibniz lowered his eyes, his voice trembling with sobs. Light and darkness will eventually return to nothingness. Only God will be eternal in ultimate annihilation. The three of them stood there above the abyss, their presence a mixture of darkness and solemnity. Xian Yu Fei Ming suddenly stretched out her hands. Her 10 fingers spread out, as if pulling on threads in the void. His Majesty Samel's seal has long been crumbling after our years of efforts. If I offer my soul, and you use a treasure imbued with the power of faith to help me tear open the rift, then the true form of God can descend once more. Orion and Leibniz closed their eyes and devoutly recited the verses of the Holy Scripture. May the kingdom of heaven come, and God be the only light in the world. He will destroy evil, dispel darkness, and bring eternal life to the devout believers. As the two chanted, a soft light emanated from them, and a jet-black scripture appeared on their chests. The scroll was remarkably similar to the Vatican's Book of Revelation, except that it was entirely formed by the power of faith, as if it recorded forbidden chapters that humanity should never have known. That was one of the most important relics of the Holy See, a copy of the Book of Revelation. Leibniz slowly unfurled the scroll, his fingertips brushing over the reversed text. A low, mournful prayer flowed from her lips. In an instant, the darkness of the abyss of eternal darkness seemed to be awakened, and countless whispers came from the bottom of the abyss, like billions of vengeful spirits crying out at the same time. The copy of the Apocalypse before Orion turned on its own, the sound of the pages turning like leaves in the wind, and then a vast energy surged toward the abyss of eternal darkness. In the name of light, tear through the darkness. Xian Yu Fei Ming opened her arms wide. In the name of darkness, let us welcome eternity. Three forces converge at this moment. The bloodline of the black moon, the commandments of light, the hymns of morning. Boom! A jet-black crack suddenly appeared at the bottom of the abyss. The crack was like a giant, open eye, peering into the world from nothingness. A sudden gust of wind arose, as if the entire abyss of eternal darkness was being torn apart. Countless pebbles hung in the air and fell, distorting the very fabric of heaven and earth. A chilling aura emanated from the crack. That is the power of Samhael, the ancient demon god, the sin of rage. It was as if a gigantic hand was slowly reaching out from the bottom of the abyss, touching the edge of the seal. Xian Yu Fei Ming's face was illuminated by the black light. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she was almost insane. God, I heard your whispers. I saw you awakening. Leibniz closed his eyes, two clear tears streaming down his face. Is this the hymn of destruction? Orion gritted his teeth, his right hand gripping the silver cross on his chest so tightly that thick, crimson blood flowed from his palm. The power he unleashed was a struggle against the darkness, not to seal it, but to completely open the rift. This place also holds the power of the Dark Moon Empire sealed for billions of years. The Xian Yu Fei Ming faction had been plotting in the darkness for an unknown amount of time, waiting for the right moment to break the seal through this round of fire sacrifice. This is because it is the time when Samhael's seal is at its weakest. The power of darkness grew increasingly terrifying. The mere wisp of energy emanating from the abyss was enough to make Orion and Leibniz tremble uncontrollably. They were like ants facing a giant dragon, who could turn them to ashes with a single breath. Even a black Archon-level being with an ability index of over 40,000 is not even an ant in the face of the 7 deadly sins. Suddenly, just as the cracks were widening, several terrifying auras appeared in the distance. The aura pressed down like a mountain, causing the air in the abyss of eternal darkness to freeze instantly. Xian Yu Fei Ming suddenly looked up, her eyes narrowing sharply. Impossible. How could they be here? 5 dark figures slowly appeared in the sky. They were dressed in different priestly robes, with a black moon appearing behind each of them. The other 5 black moon priests of the Dark Moon Empire have all arrived here. Their gazes were icy as they looked down at Xian Yu Fei Ming and the 2 from the Holy See. The first priest's voice, deep and resonant like thunder, echoed through the abyss, filled with boundless disappointment and anger. Xian Yu Fei Ming, how dare you collude with heretics and attempt to break Samhael's seal? Boom! The darkness of the abyss of eternal darkness trembled once more, as if it would transform into a place of judgment between gods and priests in the next instant. The aura of the abyss of eternal darkness had completely boiled over. The pitch-black fissures continued to expand beneath the earth, like a hideous wound, overflowing with blood and fire like black light from the depths of nothingness. Countless whispers mingled in the air, like the wailing of billions of ghosts, tearing at everyone's heart and soul. 5 majestic figures stood silently in midair. Xian Yu Fei Ming's gaze suddenly tightened, and her heart skipped a beat. The ritual to break the seal was still in progress, and she couldn't help but feel nervous. She had done everything perfectly, so why did these guys still show up? The first priestess, in particular, should have been heading deep into the moon to find other sources of energy to replenish the fire. How come you're back so quickly? However, since things have come to this, there's nothing more to say. Xian Yu Fei Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. The Dark Moon clan was born precisely to break His Majesty Samuel's seal. Her fingers suddenly pointed at the 5 Black Moon priests. It is you who have betrayed the mission of the Dark Moon clan. The 3rd Black Moon priest slowly stepped forward. She wore a long, black robe, and the black moon behind her emitted a faint blood-red glow, like an eye that devours souls. Her voice was cold, yet tinged with a sigh. Xian Yu Fei Ming, we have known about everything you have done. We just didn't want to believe it. You were once loyal to the Dark Moon. You were once the most fervent guardian of the Empire. But now, you have colluded with heretics, attempting to break the seal of Samuel. Her gaze fell coldly on Xian Yu Fei Ming, as if judging him. And now your actions have been proven. Surrender. Chapter 24:15 Light Falls into Darkness 3. Upon hearing this, Xian Yu Fei Ming suddenly lowered her head. Her shoulders trembled slightly, seemingly flustered, but soon, an extremely eerie laugh escaped from her throat. Ha 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 ha. She suddenly raised her head, her dark red eyes seeming to burn with a mad flame. You so-called comrades, you keep talking about faith, you keep talking about protecting the Empire. But what have you actually done? Her voice suddenly became sharp, echoing throughout the entire abyss of eternal darkness. For tens of thousands of years, you, along with those Radiant Moon clan members, have simply been reinforcing the seal, suppressing His Majesty Samuel's power underground. You fear him. You fear the true God. You use this so-called order to cover up your cowardice. And I, Xian Yu Fei Ming, have never been afraid. She suddenly opened her arms and slowly sank into the abyss of eternal darkness. The pitch-black cracks churned beneath her feet, like gaping maws swallowing her whole. But she didn't struggle. Instead, her face was filled with fervor, and her eyes gleamed with an unusual light. Great Creator Samuel, hear my sacrifice. I will offer my soul and blood in exchange for your grace. In an instant, the abyss trembled violently. It was as if an invisible giant hand reached out from the depths and covered her body. Xian Yu Fei Ming's body twisted instantly. His flesh and blood seemed to be scorched, but it was quickly reshaped. Dark runes appeared on her skin, her bones shattered and regenerated, and her hair turned from jet black to blood red, dancing wildly in the wind. Her figure grew several times larger in an instant, and a black moon riddled with cracks appeared behind her, dripping with blood-like light. She raised her head, her eyes bloodshot, her voice seeming to echo directly from the depths of an abyss. Do you see it? This is a true miracle. His Majesty Samuel has bestowed power upon me. A powerful and terrifying aura emanated from Xian Yu Fei Ming. The abyss of eternal darkness is the place where Samuel is sealed, but his spirit and will are immortal, so he cannot be trapped. Sensing the sacrifice of his loyal followers, he bestowed upon Xian Yu Fei Ming power. The 5 priests stared intently at Xian Yu Fei Ming's changes in midair, and the atmosphere froze instantly. The second priest sneered, "Madman, you dare to offer your body as a sacrifice and assimilate with the power of Samuel. You have no idea what this means." The 4th priest shook his head, his voice cold and stern. "She has completely fallen. She is no longer one of us, but a follower of Samuel." The 5th priest's eyes darkened. She must be killed immediately, or the consequences will be dire. However, the first Black Moon priest raised his hand, stopping them from doing so. Her figure was tall and slender, her long robes fluttering even without wind, and the black moon behind her seemed to encompass the entire night sky. Her eyes were cold, yet carried a hint of solemnity. "You may all step back." Her voice was calm, yet it was impossible to disobey. At this point, the number of people no longer matters. Xian Yu Fei Ming's power surged dramatically, increasing from over 50,000 points to a terrifying level of over 70,000 points. Of all of them, Only the first priest was capable of fighting her. The other four joining them would only be a pointless death. The other four priests looked at each other and finally retreated into the distance in silence. The first Black Moon priestess slowly stepped forward, her gaze fixed on Xian Yu Feiming. Feiming, I used to have the highest hopes for you. You were intelligent, decisive, and persistent, and you were once the youngest priest in the Dark Moon Empire. But now, you have embarked on a path of no return. There was no anger in her voice, only a cold, authoritative tone. If you insist on becoming a vessel for Samuel, then today, I will personally end you. Xian Yu Feiming suddenly raised her head, her eyes flashing with blood-red light. End me? Ha ha ha. You self-proclaimed protectors are nothing but guards who treat yourselves like prisoners. What right do you have to judge me? Boom. She took a sudden step, and the ground beneath her feet instantly cracked. The pitch-black power surged into the sky like a tidal wave, transforming into several sharp blades that slashed directly at the first Black Moon priest. The first Black Moon priest did not dodge. She slowly raised her hand, and the black moon behind her suddenly shone with boundless cold light. The light did not shine, but rather suppressed, like the deathly stillness of the night, swallowing up all darkness. Boom, boom, boom. The two forces collided in midair, creating countless ripples. The entire abyss of eternal darkness trembled violently at that moment, as if it were about to collapse completely. Xian Yu Feiming laughed wildly, waving his arms around. Dark chains burst forth from her body, as if to drag everything into the abyss. Her power no longer belonged to mortals. It was the aura of Samuel that was rampaging. The first Black Moon priest remained calm. She clasped her hands together and silently recited an ancient incantation. The black moon behind it slowly rotated, transforming into an unfathomable vortex. Within that vortex, countless runes flickered, as if even light and sound were being absorbed into it. The enormous full moon spun 3 times in the sky, and the moonlight that fell directly hit Xian Yu Feiming's body, causing her body to tremble 3 times. Suddenly, Xian Yu Feiming's dark chains collided with the vortex. The chains crumbled inch by inch, turning to ashes. What? Xian Yu Feiming's eyes narrowed. The first Black Moon priest's voice was icy. This is the true meaning of the Black Moon, to protect, not to destroy. Her figure was like the coldest blade in the night sky, heading straight for Xian Yu Feiming. The strongest person in the Dark Moon Empire must first possess extremely powerful strength. Unlike the 6 generations of humans who have existed for less than 1,000,000 years, the Lunarians have existed for over 1,000,000,000 years. They inherited the power and knew how to become strong. Even now, in the eyes of humans on Earth, they are not much different from primitive humans. At most, they are just at the stage of having just learned to walk upright. However, Xian Yu Feiming did not back down in the face of the powerful first Black Moon priest. She roared to the sky, her voice tearing through the air. Your Majesty Samuel, please grant me power once more. I will show these traitors of their faith the true power of a demon god. Boom. The rift in the abyss suddenly widened, and an even more terrifying aura surged out. Her body swelled again, and hideous black bone wings sprouted from her arms, while the blood moon behind her burned into flames. She was like a demon god devoid of humanity, looking down upon the heavens and earth. Come, Dark Moon Misa. Let me use His Majesty Samuel's power to tear you apart. His Majesty will be very pleased if I sacrifice you. The first Black Moon priest's eyes narrowed slightly, his long robes fluttering in the wind. Then I'll show you just how vast the gap truly is between the first priest and the 6th priest of the Dark Moon Empire. Dear viewers, thanks for staying with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you.